Hello and welcome to week 2 of our Lent video series. It's wonderful to have you join us online today. So as Lent is all about drawing near to God, last week we talked about how we could give things up or perhaps even take things up as a way that we can draw near to God, remembering Jesus' time in the wilderness. For me, I've given up social media. As I've told you, it's much better for me to give up that than biscuits or chocolate. And I'm aware that the irony is not lost on the fact that I'm uploading videos to YouTube and posting them on social media. So you have to bear with me on that, I guess, but yeah. So I wondered anyway, have you given up anything or taken anything up for Lent this year? Today, having set the scene then, last week, we begin Jesus' journey to the cross this week. However, the first part of Jesus' journey to the cross actually happens and begins well before he was even born. The prophet Isaiah spoke about Jesus' death 600 years before Jesus was even born. And Isaiah 53, one of the chapters in that book, is one of my favourite parts of the Bible. It's something I regularly use as a foundation for communion, as it really helps set the scene. It tells the Easter story long before the Easter story was even written. So this is what Isaiah 53 says. My servant grew up in the Lord's presence like a tender green shoot, like a root in dry ground. There was nothing beautiful or majestic about his appearance, nothing to attract us to him. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. We turned our backs on him and looked the other way. He was despised and we did not care. Yet it was our weaknesses that he carried. It was our sorrows that weighed him down. And we thought his troubles were a punishment from God, a punishment for his own sins. But he was pierced for our rebellion, crushed for our sins. He was beaten so that we could be whole. He was whipped so that we could be healed. All of us, like sheep, have strayed away. We have left God's path to follow our own. Yet the Lord laid on him the sins of us all. He was oppressed and treated harshly, yet he never said a word. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep is silent before the shearers, he did not open his mouth. He had done no wrong. He had never deceived anyone. But he was buried like a criminal and put in a rich man's grave. But it was the Lord's good plan to crush him and cause him grief. When his life is made an offering for sin, he will have many descendants. He will enjoy a long life, and the Lord's good plan will prosper in his hands. The Easter story was written long before it ever happened. In fact, it was written long before Isaiah 53 was written. This was God's plan at the very beginning of time. The more I think about it, the more amazing that is. Jesus coming to earth as a human, living a perfect life and sacrificing himself was not an afterthought. It wasn't a plan B or C or D. This was always God's idea. This was always his plan. On Valentine's Day, I used the Hillsong campaign on our social media of Cross Equals Love, something they did a few years ago. And Jesus' death on the cross was an extravagant display of love for each of us. And his sacrifice wasn't an afterthought. So then neither are you. You are not an afterthought. You are not any sort of plan B. Before the creation of the world, God knew you completely and utterly. He knew what your life was going to look like. He knew the colour of your eyes and the colour of your hair, your favourite food, your favourite hobbies. And he loved and loves you so much that he sent his son, his only son, to die on a cross for you. You are not an afterthought. You are not alive by chance. Like the Easter story, God has a plan for you and for your life. You've been beautifully created and crafted in the image of God, and He loves you, and He wants you to know Him too. So before we even get to the Easter story was always God's plan A. And Isaiah 53 is part of the proof of that. So today and this week, it's important for us to remember that the Easter story wasn't an afterthought. And therefore neither are you. You are created for a reason and a purpose. You are deeply loved by God. So why not chat to Him? Why not speak to Him? Why not reach out to Him in whatever way you know, whatever way you're comfortable with, and wait and see what He might say to you.